only stared dumbfounded. Am I dead? Do you wish to be? The strange voice spun him away from the brilliant pulsations to find a weathered old man sitting cross-legged on a higher point upon the energy-outlined crag, his features indistinguishable. Like the Ore people, and like himself, this old man was defined by lines of light and illuminated translucency. The only demarcation to the old man's race was the oriental-style robes he wore. Who are you? He asked. The old man opened his eyes, revealing a brilliance of light akin to the starflower, and gently smiled. The real question you need to ask is, who are you? He opened his mouth to answer, but found he could not utter a word. The question had stunned him to the quick. His whole life he had wondered, as had others, as to what he was. Never had he truly considered who he was. Who was he? Images of the three ladies and his first meeting floated to mind, and he recited, "Blessed be he who is chosen. Blessed be he who is the one." Really? The old man's smile widened to include surprise, his brows raising as he grunted and groaned to his feet. Doubt pulled his lips into a frown as the old man came to stand beside him. A part of him felt surprised at how short the old man appeared, barely coming up to his waist. "And you know what that means?" asked the old man, his smile still on his face. Confusion flowed through him. He did not know. They never told him. He had assumed they meant that he was chosen, as Fernando was chosen, as Bridget was chosen, as Nodos was chosen. A stab of pain at the thought of his chooser doubled him, and he fell to one knee, his face held, supported by the man's warm hands. He could not help but to gaze into starry eyes. Such pain, it clouds. Sadly, the old man shook his head. It is through the attachments in one's life that suffering is created. He had heard those words before, long ago in another life. Another life for me, yes, the same life for you. Recognition dawned, and he raised his hands to take the old man's in his. "Master?" The old man shook his head. His smile returned. No titles here, no names either. He could not believe who was before him. It was not possible. He had been dead for almost 1,000 years. How? How is this possible? He asked, his eyes roaming from one sparkling old eye to another. Do you not remember your teachings? The old man canted his head, deeply studying the one before him. Ah, I see, a lack of experience for the once born forever living. It is no wonder you are here and not there. There? With them. The old man gazed up to the pulsating lotus and pointed at the myriad of lights that flowed into it. He stood and followed the grizzled old finger before it lowered. They stood in awe of the sight. Why aren't you there? He asked. Ah, true question, beamed the old man. Follow. In silence he followed the slow pondering steps of the old man, the one who had once saved his life, the one who had been with him, taught him and cared for him when Nodos could not, the one who had married the warrior's path with that of the spiritual. He watched the old man before him and felt surprised to see the figure before him waver and flicker through a myriad of familiar forms until one stunned him into stillness. Come, boys, said the figure that was Garrett. You asked a question. The figure turned forward along the path, flickering once more between forms. On leaden feet, he followed the man who had once abandoned him, who once had trained him, who had once cared for him as a father, the one who had set him upon the warrior's path, the one whose sword he cherished because he was his father. A tricky definition, said the now old man as he continued down the unseen rocky path. Is a father one who gives his physical building blocks to his progeny, or is a father one who chooses to care for another younger person? One who loves the younger person regardless of a biological connection? One who is loved in turn by that younger person? Is love the real connection, or is it something tangible, quantifiable? Confusion filled the spaces around the pain, lapping at the hurt until he closed his eyes and he turned his head away. He felt a hand on his arm and he opened his eyes to see the old man looking up at him, a sad smile on the wrinkly, wizened face. You must decide. And the old man turned and pointed into the blackness. There, from the new vantage point on the precipice, he could see the starflower at a new angle. It appeared more on its side, and the pulsations of light lit up the rest of the darkness until it washed over them. He closed his eyes as a sensation of love, acceptance, and warmth flowed over and through him. He had only felt this way with one other. With each swell of light, sound erupted in an ethereal chorus unheard before his ears. The chord undulated and vibrated, filling him with a sense of peace and love that he knew the pinpoints of light had felt, and all he wanted to do was stay there and bask in its glory. A hand alighted on his arm and he opened his eyes. "Look there," said the old man, his arm still pointing. Still reeling from the music and the light, he followed the old man's arm and saw past the starflower. A single tendril of light flowed from the center back of the golden white orb. It led past where they stood on the precipice and into the darkness until it was caught by a brilliant blue-white orb in the distance. It glimmered and glowed like the sun. He noticed that this white path of light was sparsely made up of individual orbs of light similar to those that had flowed into the starflower. But these orbs no longer held any shape except of a tiny pinpoint of light. Peering closely at the star in the distance, he could make out a scant few other trails of light flowing towards it from faraway places. "I go there," replied the old man. The answer surprised him. "Now?" "Soon," the old man groaned as he sat down to stare out into the space. "Why not go there?" He stayed standing as he pointed to the starflower. "Because I have only one thing left before I become." He gazed down at the serenity on the old man's face. "What is that?" "To help you help them." "I don't understand." He sat down beside the old man. "That is the problem, is it not?" The old man turned his head to face him. "They did a poor job preparing you properly, but I guess it is their nature. Their detachment from the world left them ill-equipped to truly help you, to be a benefit to them. Look over there." The old man pointed to a place that was devoid of any light, but it was not dark. In the space, wisps flowed. "You know that place." Indeed he did. "You have been there many times. Only you have been allowed to penetrate it. Only you have been able to bring hope to those in the center of its shrouded light. A grave mistake was made based upon the hubris of those who made it," continued the old man. "It was hoped that you would be the one to correct it." "Correct what?" "Sometimes detaching oneself too much can lead one away from the path, as attaching oneself can create suffering. It is the middle path that must be walked, but before that path must be traversed, one must mark the way." "I don't understand." He closed his eyes, afraid of what he might know, afraid that he might know what the old man wished of him. "Love," whispered the old man. "What?" "Do you love?" The question shook him. Yes, he susurrated before he could stop himself. He loved Jeannie. "And so many others," stated the old man. He nodded, though a part of him wished he did not. "Then you know what to do." The old man stood up and offered a hand. Taking that hand, he stood to stare down at the old man. "I love you, boy," said the old man, his form flickering to that of Garrett and then back again. I love you too." The old man smiled as he stepped off the precipice. A flash of light blinded him, and then he saw a brilliant orb flying to the distant blue-white sun. When it was gone, a sense of peace and purpose filled him as he turned his attention to the void and what it contained. He stepped off the precipice.
That was Karen Dale's author of the Chosen Chronicles, ladies and gentlemen. That was a pleasure for me because I hadn't actually got to examine the new book myself yet. So this is actually the first time that any of this has been exposed to the public. I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight, supporting all of these tremendous authors in the various genres. They're very talented folks, and I think you should definitely consider some of the books here. And I want to say thank you so much just for spending time with them and helping support Canadian literature. Everybody, thank you very much for coming out. Good night.
This reading brought to you by the works of Stephen B. Pearl. For more, visit my website at www.stnperl.com. That's www.stephenpearl.com.